Thank you, Amy. So I see that there are at the moment there are 4 questions on the question area. For those of you who want to type into the question area, you can continue to do so until the end of the session. I also see that there's a couple of hands, so maybe I'll just read out the question on the question area first. And Todd, you are amongst attendees, so I will unmute you so that you can answer any questions. But if you want to quickly join as an organizer, you can also do so. There is actually the first question is about matching funds and also the level of funding requested. So basically, an organization, this is a question from Elizabeth, they have the $250,000 in matching funds, but they are wondering if they would stand a better chance if they request a lower amount. So Amy or Todd, just
Sorry, yeah, I didn't get in on the video side.
It's okay.
Sorry about that. It's probably me. Yeah, I was going to take the first, take the questions, and Amy can help out. No, when we're looking at an application, we're looking at having the matching funds to cover your. You're going to have the grant amount. You can have your matching funds, which should equal the total project cost. So you want to make sure you're asking for at least more than 20% of your total project. Amy, you can correct me if I'm incorrect there. But the main thing is that you've got matching to cover. If it was a $250,000 grant and you had $300,000 yourself and it was a $550,000 total, that you've got that matching supported, and that's what we're going to be looking for as far as financial goes. So the amounts, as long as you're hitting the minimum requested amount, the amount is not something we look at as much as, really not at all. We're just looking that you've got enough to get the project finished if you're eligible for the grant at the end of the day. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. Their question was asking, like, thinking strategically, is there a preferred range? And I agree, Todd. I think the preferred range is you're within that 20 to 50% of the cost that you're asking, and you have the other matching funds. So that in itself is limiting a bit there. But other than that, no, there's no other kind of strategic setup. There's no benefit.
Right. Thank you both. So the next question is, my institution has 2 large capital projects at the moment. One is replacing a roof, and the second one is upgrading washroom accessibility, probably constructing a new washroom. Could we apply for both at the same time, or are these 2 separate projects?
Kalina, could you repeat what the 2 are again?
The 2 projects are, one, replacing a roof, and the second one is upgrading washroom accessibility and probably constructing a new washroom.
Mm-hmm. We've seen, building upgrades. Now, Amy can correct me if I'm off here, but we've seen applicants come in for a building upgrade, and then you detail what you're doing with the building. We are looking for one type project at a time. But I know, I'm pretty sure we've seen building upgrades, and we have more than one thing going on with the building. But Amy, can you jump in if you see that differently?
Yeah, I think you're right there. The only time it might come into play is if including like a washroom and a roof within an overall upgrade project, if it pushed it over the maximum amount.
Yeah, so as long as your total project's within 1.25 million, I would frame the request as a building upgrade, and then you can describe what you're doing as far as roof and upgrading washrooms. Because it's not uncommon for organizations to have more than one thing they're trying to do. but I would describe it as an overall, building renovations / updates, something like that. Hopefully that makes sense.
Thanks. I think it does. It depends. So if they're applying for a building upgrade, they can include what they want to do with the building as the one project, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's up to the applicant
Yes.
how they frame the scope of the project, right?
Yeah, just frame everything as a building upgrade and then tell us what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So the next question is regarding the ownership or lease requirement. Would a 5-year lease with guaranteed 5-year renewal term be sufficient?
Yes, as long as you give us the paperwork on it, the documentation on it. That's
Okay.
great. So we need to see the lease and the renewal, or if the renewal is from the verbal from the landlord, have a letter from the landlord or something that supports that says the 5 years is locked or is guaranteed. As long as you have something backing it up.
Okay. So the next question is about the gaming account, the bank account. We have an existing gaming account, so do we need a second gaming bank account for capital funds, or can the one account house both of these fundings? I think the answer is you just need the one account, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one gaming account.
That's why
Gaming
there's
bank
a
account.
separate capital project supplement, because when you're reporting out on it, we want to see it broken out, but it can all be in that same bank account.
Okay. So next question, regarding the purchase of capital assets, do they need to be brand new or can they be used equipment?
Yeah, for sure they can be used. They can be brand new. They can be used. We've seen both. As long as typically you'll have an invoice supporting the purchase from the seller and supporting it. We definitely see, especially with vehicles, we'll see people getting vehicles that are not brand new, or could be other items as well. But yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay, thanks. So next question, if our organization receive a project grant in 2020, are we eligible to apply for the grant again for the same project?
Same projects, we only fund the project once. So it would have to be something different. If you want to apply for a capital project grant again, it would have to be a different project.
Yeah.
We do recognize the inflationary costs over the last couple of years, and projects are more expensive to do. But to be fair to all the applicants, we just can only fund the one project you have. If you have different projects, that's totally fine. If you're applying every year, you may have to sit out a year or two, as we're trying to support the many applicants that we get. For $5 million is a lot of money, but there's a lot of demand on it as well. So we have to try and be as fair as we can to all the applicants. And if you've received a grant recently, you may have to wait. It's not indicative of the quality of your application. It's just we're trying to share the grant amounts as much as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can the grant be put towards a project that is already in progress? Can the funds be used to reimburse the organization if the project has already been paid for?
So we're pretty clear on the project cannot be completed. So we're in 2024. The project you're applying on must not be completed by December 31, 2024. So we aren't looking to fund retroactively for completed projects. We're looking to help you get that project completed, and it would have a finish date at least sometime in 2025, typically.
But can it be already, if the project is already started, potentially they can still apply, is that correct? But they cannot be reimbursed for expenses that has already been spent, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Galena. If you've started this summer or in the spring and you're not going to finish until after December 31st, that's fine.
Okay.
We would like you to show us that you're going to need those funds to complete the project, and that you're not going to get the grant if you are successful until near the end of December. So hopefully that the applicants just need to show us their timeline, that it works. Now, if you're finishing in December, we will use discretion, where we have a lot of discretion with the grant program because there's a lot of different circumstances. So sometimes it's hard to say, draw an absolute line in the sand, but we are looking for the projects to be ongoing into 2025, ideally, but recognizing some might be close and might be fairly complete in December. We'll look at that with discretion.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Have I backtracked enough there, Amy?
I can add a little bit to this because I get a lot of questions in this theme, and there's a lot of different scenarios too. So even if the project is scheduled to complete, after our notification, but you've begun it, you can use the grant funds to reimburse some of those costs if it's within that same fiscal year. So it's the same as for our project grants. If you have costs that have come out already, you can reimburse your operating account, but only within that same fiscal year that you received the funds.
Okay, so David, I hope that answers your question. Any of these questions, if you have a follow-up questions, please raise your hand and we will come back to it if we have time later when we've gone through the first round of the question sets on this list. So the next question is, do property ownership include a unit in a strata complex?
That's a good question. I think if you're owning it outright.
Yeah, it's not something we see all the time, but if a nonprofit was in a strata unit, we just look to have demonstration of ownership if you were owning it with the BC Assessment Authority assessment or a taxation letter from the municipality you're in, things like that.
Yeah,
it could be a purchase of sale agreement if it's recent.
Maybe seen things like that where it's like a floor or a set of suites in a building. Yeah.
Yeah. So
just provide us the evidence of the ownership.
Yeah.
Right. So this is Dana. So if you have follow-up questions, you can ask that later as well. The next question is, I have 250,000 in matching funds for an HVAC overhaul. Can I start my project using only the funds I have secured to date? I think maybe I can help interpret it. This is from Colette. So Colette, if my interpretation is wrong, just let us know. I think what she's asking is, they have the matching funds. Can they start the project by using the matching funds now, and then apply for the project grant, and still say that they have the 250,000 or whatever matching grant that they have?
Yeah, that's not, there are certainly projects get underway and people get started with them as they're applying. And that's not unusual. As long as your total project cost is covered between the grant you're asking for from us and your matching funds. So you don't want to be disappointed, or of course there's, as Amy outlined, it's a competitive process with the grant application. So we don't want you to be disappointed, or you're gonna have to wait until December to know if you're getting the community gaming, the capital grant. So just have that in mind. That it's not a guarantee. So, but we do certainly work with organizations that have to hold on and wait another year. I'm not trying to be negative, just reality sometimes that you may have to be prepared to do that, but hopefully not. But you can spend some of the funds you have for sure.
Yeah.
We just want to see the timeline of when you expect to be completed.
Yeah, so that would show on the timeline and in the budget. The 250,000 would be included in the budget and shown as matching funds, and the timeline would start whenever you're actually starting, right? Even if that's a week or 2 weeks or something before you apply.
Okay, thank you. The next question, for extra provincial organizations that are federally registered who do not meet the 2/3 Board of Director residency in BC requirement, we were advised from the branch, in bracket, I believe the email came from Amy, so Amy, maybe you remember that, last year, that we do qualify if we have a governing body such as a committee dedicated to our work in BC. How do you want us to show or demonstrate that in our application?
Okay, so this is the same for the capital grants as it is for our programming grants. So we'd be looking for that governing body. You can put that down as like a secondary board. So, how you like to see it, Todd?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just describe it to us and attach the information, so that we can see that you have that governing body in BC.
Yeah, the idea I think behind it is to make sure that the BC Gaming grant funds are going to programs and projects in BC that are designed by people in BC, for people in BC, and that there's no way the funds are going out of province for any out of province things. So we want them to be managed and decisions made by some kind of a board or a governing body, committee, something in BC. And that BC body can be elected or appointed.
Okay. The next question is to do with matching funds again. Matching funds, do in-kind donations count? For example, the school board providing labor, and how do we account for this?
Yeah, good question, because matching funds is often an area of trickiness. I don't believe that labor does not count for our matching funds. Amy, I have to back me up on that one.
Not for the capital project grants. It's a little bit different than our regular intake. So matching funds are things like donated supplies, but not in labor.
So does it mean that if somebody has donated, supplies or materials for the project, they can be counted as matching funds or part of the matching funds, or can they not?
You can for donated materials and supplies.
Right.
Quite
okay.
sure you can put, but for labor, it's just, I mean, it's great to get donated labor. It's just a difficult one for us to quantify, and we can't really hang our hat on it. As far what we don't want is a project to not get going or stall and not be able to complete, and because there was too much anticipated, donated labor, for instance, versus the reality of it. So we find it's a difficult one to rely on as much. But if you have materials and supplies, that's an item you can use as donated, as an in-kind.
So it's under section 1.4 of the program guidelines too. There's a section in there.
Okay.
So it's pretty clear. Tangible in-kind contributions will be considered.
Right.
Land discounts, intangible support such as volunteer time or labor will not be considered.
And again, just to add, because I've seen this many times, we need some kind of backup on that as well. Ideally from the supplier or the donor to say, we're including this as a donation for the project, something to back it up.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So the next question, again about matching funds. Do matching funds need to be set aside as restricted, either board resolution restricting the use of funds, or just available in bank account of cashable investments?
It's a good question because this ties into how it can impact the irregular community gaming grant application if you have significant funds sitting in your bank account. So it's not a bad idea to restrict them if you're going to have those funds in there for a period of time, like over a couple of years or something. It's not going to impact your capital application because having those funds is very positive. But you might want to consider restricting them if you're applying for a regular grant. And we have lots of information in our regular community gaming grant guidelines on, board restriction and before the year end and having it in a note on the balance sheet, etc.
Yeah. I think you just want to be really clear. If you have the matching funds on hand already in cash, you just want to clearly show that. So whether they're restricted, unrestricted, or if you get them after your fiscal year ends and they're not on your balance sheet, you can provide a copy of the bank statement. Just show us in some way under that matching fund section that you have that money.
Actually, Todd and Amy, I do have a tag-on question because I actually have an experience of helping an organization, and they have left the matching funds in their bank account and not restricted, and they were told, I think this was maybe a few years ago, they were told that they need to restrict it or show that it, because just basically they were told that just leaving it in the bank account means that they can actually spend it tomorrow after they've sent in the application. So is it better to actually restrict it or it doesn't matter?
Well, it is a good yes, you can certainly restrict it, it is stronger. It's very clear to us the funds are there and that they're restricted. Right. And have a note disclosure on with your financials that those funds are restricted. And so that's yeah, it's a good thing to do that way, and that way you put it, Carolina.
Okay. Yeah.
Another thing that is a smart thing to do with the application is just give us a snapshot of your bank account, the day before you apply or something, and we see, sometimes your balance sheet is a number of months old and you've had funds come in or something. The snapshot showing, you can say, look, we just got this XYZ grant and here's a recent snapshot showing our new bank balance. It's another positive thing just to show us, okay, the cash is in hand in this for those monies.
I think they did that, but they were still told that, because it's sitting free in the bank account, they could potentially spend it the next day. I think that's unlikely, but that's why I tagged on
right.
the follow-up.
If you don't have time to restrict it, or if it seems like it's too much, going through the board, put a note on the balance sheet identifying those funds that they are well intended and will be used for this capital project. Like spell it out to us, and that will give our analysts good information. Like, okay, that's what it's for. Restriction is the best. It's definitely solid, and we understand then the board is involved and everyone's on the same page. If you don't have time, I would just make sure you have a note on the balance sheet at the end in the note section, or just create your own note at the end if you have internally prepared financials. Just put a note at the very end about on the balance sheet that's what those funds are for. It'll be helpful.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, the next question is about leasehold improvement. What if we are looking for funding for leasehold improvements for a new lease, but we lease out, but the lease is less than 10 years, but has renewable options that would surpass 10 years?
Yeah, we see this quite often. I think one of the strongest things to do is have a letter from the landlord, if the landlord's willing to indicate that the lease is likely to be extended. Something, a landlord can be from the city, or it could be a private individual or company, but that's the strongest, that you're getting some assurance from the landlord that it is intended to be renewed. If you can get that, that's great. And if you've got renewals and you didn't have a chance to, or the landlord's not, or you just want to be silent on it, as long as you have the renewals there, it's fairly good. We'd like to see that. But the best is the letter from the landlord saying they intend to renew, type of thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think in general, it seems like the more explanation or documentations, right, the clearer it will show.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, the grant. Yeah.
We know how much work these are. They're a lot of work. I used to be in the nonprofit world and I've done them. So I know it's a ton of work. And so it's just the nature of government grants. But the more you sweat the detail, the higher chance you have of success.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say the key word on a lot of that is like demonstrate it, right? If you tell us that you have a commitment in your own cover letter, it means like a lot less than actually having that, like a signed letter from your landlord saying, yes, the lease expires in 4 years, but we do intend to renew it. And then that's signed, right? It's always demonstrate it, back it up.
Okay. Thanks. So the next question is, our daycare is hoping to ask for funding to update our heating to heat pumps, so bracket clear facilities project, and update our playground area. Do we need to submit 2 applications for facilities and community infrastructure project? I think, Todd, I think I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, they're a little different. Again, it's like the other one with the roof and the washrooms. You could put it under a facilities update type heading, and then include what you want to do. So we definitely see that, because things happen, especially if you're looking to do them on a similar timeline. If you were looking to do them a couple years apart, you could apply for them individually, but if you want to combine them under some type of facilities improvements, then I would do it that way, and just one project. You only want to apply. You can only apply once a year, but apply for the one update and include both the heat pump update and the playground update.
Okay, thanks. So steadily going through, we still have quite a number on here. So for those of you who want to talk, just hang in there. The next question is, our project is upgrades to our T-bar at a community non-profit ski hill. It is purchase of major parts and rebuild of the top lift station, assuming that. So basically asking if this is an acceptable project.
It sounds like a facilities type project. We always have to see the application before we can make obviously the full assessment, but that sounds like a facilities update. It's a nonprofit organization. So it sounds reasonable to me. Amy, what would you?
So this is a T-bar at a community nonprofit ski hill. So I'm not entirely sure what a T-bar. I'm looking at the question here. It sounds like
it's a lift. It's the way
it's part of the lift.
Pulls you up the
So
mountain.
I'd say we're looking to see too, like, is the project accessible to the community, or is it supporting some kind of programming or service? So is this something that anyone in the community can access? Are you running ski classes there? How are people going to access the ski lift? So looking at that and making sure it's not just for a small select group of people who will have access to it would probably be key.
Okay.
So that's just again, going through the application and really telling us all the community benefit and the programming you do that really supports that. It'll support the application.
Right. So the next one is actually some sort of circling back to the matching funds question. So basically the question is, if they've already started the project and we have begun using the matching funds, is there any impact on our application? Because they do need the capital grants to complete the projects. So it's related to what you've just answered earlier on about starting to use the matching grant and so forth.
Yeah, it's very similar. As long as your timeline for completion is basically post December 31st this year, yeah, you're okay there. Again, be aware that, yeah, unfortunately our grants aren't a guarantee, but you can just, as Amy said before, you have your budget, you have your timeline, and we have many projects that people do start spending on during 2024 that are finishing sometime in 2025. So that's very normal.
Okay. So this question, can we apply for a capital project grant if the full project budget exceeds $1.2 million?
1.25 is our total, so that's your total project cost. So as Amy said, we aren't looking. It's a number we've set over the years, based again on the limited, $5 million. Again, a lot of money, but a lot of demand on it. So if your total project is greater than that, you would not be eligible, unfortunately.
Okay, so even if they ask for like a small the 250,000 because it's like less than 20%, is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. the amount they ask for is fine. It's just the total project cost. We need it to be less than 1.25 million, or else it's not an eligible project for a community gaming grant, capital project grant rather.
Okay.
Just we're trying to, it might seem a bit arbitrary, but we're trying to draw a line in the sand on that and just, yeah, it's a 1.5 million project. Yes, but is it much different? No, it's not much different, but we're just trying to be within what we typically see the scope of most nonprofit capital projects being. And we don't want to kind of get into the mega projects where we might, be funding something that's far, far bigger. We want to help the nonprofits kind of get over the finish line and finish their project. Of a reasonable size, and we've come up with 1.25 million as a reasonable size.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So the next question is, our project is combined with our landlord, a nonprofit, and our association, which is a nonprofit also. Our project is a building upgrade. Who should be the main applicant? We both are providing funds.
That's a good question. I'll say something, and then Amy can probably chime in. It might be stronger if it's the organization that has the active programming going on. But we also, with capital projects, you can have landlords apply if that aren't doing active programming. It's one of the unique parts of capital projects. But Amy, what would your take be?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to answer. I mean, if they're both meet the eligibility requirement for an eligible nonprofit, I mean, there's no benefit one over the other. It's hard to say if they're both running programs or supporting, because the landlord could support the programs that their tenants are running too. So there's no clear benefit. I would say the organization with more capacity to apply for the grant and that has the other matching funds on hand, although I suspect each of these would use each other for matching funds as well. So it's really hard to know without being intimately involved with the organizations.
Yeah, and I would just add there, it's a good question. whoever applies has to be, as Amy mentioned earlier, you've got to be the lead in the project. So you also may want to look at, if you're both eligible to apply, who's got the capacity to lead the project and manage, manage the project and the spending of the grant. That might be something you want to look at.
Yeah, because the applicant who applies for the grant, they're going to be awarded the money. If they're successful, it's going to go into their account, and they're going to be paying contractors and buying supplies and reporting out on those funds. So those might be some questions to ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I hope that helps. So this is just a time guideline for Amy and Todd. We have about 15 more minutes, and we have about 7 more questions. So I hope that we can answer all of them. So this one is easy. If funds are not used, can they be returned to the community gaming grants, or do they need to be?
Yes, yeah. If you complete your project and you have leftover funds, you can be in touch with us and you can return the funds.
Okay. So the next question is, does the date of an award for a matching funds matter? I'm asking because there's another grant awarded for our project in 2021. We used the grant towards the purchase of some of the equipment for the center. I don't know whether this means that the fund has already been used, but Todd and Amy, I'll throw that to you.
Yeah, we do. I think I know the gist of this. We do see some older confirmation letters, and it is stronger if you. I know it's not always easy or possible to get a newer letter from that funder that updates. If it's not, then you just need to really explain to us that this letter confirms the funds. You have them on hand. Are you showing us your current snippet of your bank balance, and that you intend to use them for this project? So you're just gonna have to really spell it out, especially if the letter is a bit older, like a 2021 letter. So you're gonna have to do some work to make sure you're clear on what monies are available for this project. That would be my take on it. Amy, do you have anything to add?
It sounds to me like the grant awarded in 2021 has been used already, so it's been spent. So I don't know that would be considered because it's not on hand for a project that's in progress right now. I might need some clarity on how the purchase of equipment is part of the current project that's being requested. It sounds like it's or like the equipment purchase is implemented already.
I think there's Amy, if you jump down to about question 4 from this one, I think there is an update on it. Is basically the question is, can the existing equipment that was bought be used as an in-kind contribution or donation as a matching funds? Which items or material can I use as in-kind donations? And can I use donated computer as in-kind donation? So basically it's a question on in-kind donations and donated equipments.
Okay, so my answer was totally off because I did not understand it that way.
So the second part, Todd, can I use existing equipment at the center as an in-kind contribution or donation as a matching fund? Which items or materials can I use as an in-kind donation? Can I use donated computers as in-kind? I mean, I guess it depends on what the project itself is. If it's an acquisition project and you're purchasing computers, it sounds like it's already partially complete. If you're doing a facility, supplies for the building of that facility would be included as in-kind. Not necessarily computers to furnish it after the fact.
It sounds like it just really depends on the project, right? And whether the equipment is relatively recently donated or it has been donated some years ago and has been in use or something like that.
Yeah.
We would like, with donated in kind, we would like to see the backup that it was donated for that project. It's not equipment you've had prior. for something for general use or something. It needs to be from a supplier or individual that's donating it to you for the project at hand.
Right. So maybe we can move on to the next one. The next question is, we recently received funding for an element of a larger project. Can we still apply this year for a new project element, or is it overall ineligible because it has received funding?
Are we talking about the same project?
This is Laurie. I'm just wondering, Laurie, do you want to expand on that? I can unmute you.
We applied last year for a grant, and it was originally not approved, although it met all the criteria. And then later, we did recently receive approval for that. So it is for the same project, just a different element of the project.
And Laurie, are you talking about that you received funding from the capital project grant?
Yes.
I guess it would depend on how that project, what scope of that was applied for that was funded before. So if you had applied for, say, an entire facility, and that was the scope that you proposed and you got some funding, I would say anything to do with that facility project, you would not be able to reapply for. But if you applied for, say, a kitchen renovation in a facility and you got funding for that, and now you want to do a bathroom upgrade in the same building, that could be a separate project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laurie, and thanks, Amy.
Yeah, that's a good question. We do see those. As far as, we recognize that you have ongoing things you want to do with your building, say, over the years. And you might think of it as one big project to yourself, but you can break them down. And we're going to do X, Y, Z this year and something else in 2 years. To us, they're different when you're doing it like that, right?
Okay.
So, yep. So it's good.
Thanks, Todd. So the next question is, my question is about the project eligibility. Our society is fully compliant and has won a grant before. We want to assist the fire department purchasing a replacement fire truck necessary to maintain FUS rating. The fire department has matching funds, but very few taxpayers to fund the balance. Can we apply for a capital grant using the tax-funded matching fund, or I think it's taxpayers? Amy, you see the questions too, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain to Todd more.
Yeah, I think I think it depends on who's going to own the fire truck. So if the eligible society is going to retain ownership and use that fire truck, then that would be eligible, but you can't purchase it for another entity. So we do see this a lot depending on what the relationships between, say, like a community association or a volunteer fire department is with maybe their regional district. And if it's not the society retaining ownership, then it won't be eligible.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree, Amy. And that maybe we're just not the right source in that case, and you might want to keep talking with your regional districts for funding options.
Or improvement district or whatever it is. But that being said, if the society is retaining ownership, I don't think there'd be any problem if you're getting tax funding for the matching fund. Would there be, Todd? And it's going toward a society-owned asset?
We see matching funding coming from regional districts and and local municipalities at times.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So this one is, I'm just wondering whether we can answer some of the quicker one first, but no, I'll follow it through. So the next question is, can you give some more details about property acquisition for a nonprofit? What type of successful proposals have you had in the past?
Property property is tricky just with the price of real estate, but as long as you're under 1.25 million and you've got your matching funds lined up and then focus on a solid application.
Yeah.
Okay.
For usually it's a nonprofit who wants to acquire their
Mhm.
own space, their own building, etc. But we don't see as many of them. It's because it's harder to purchase property. Depends where you are in the province, though, as far as costs go.
Mhm.
But if it's under 1.25 total, you're eligible to apply and just sweat the details on your application.
I
Okay.
think I've seen some come through that are like they're applying for, like we talked about, a suite in an office building. I don't know if you can find property under 1.25, honestly, but it is also property development. So if you have a chunk of land and you need to develop it for your property, I think there was a dog rescue or someone working with dogs or animals that was doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good information. Thank you. So the next one is, what if you don't have the 2023 to 24 year-end financial statement back from accountant yet? Is submitting previous years okay? I would say you would want some sort of year-to-date, even if it's not finalized, right?
We do see this. It's best if it's not back from the accountants to submit a draft, whatever you've got of a draft of your most recent year end. So you don't want to also with that if you submit your prior year end, it's going to be over a year old probably. So we do want to see the most recent year end. If it's a draft, that's acceptable for us.
Can they actually say that if they submit a draft, can they indicate in the application that they will forward the finalized version when it's ready? Would that be okay too?
If I was the applicant, I would do that. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So I think this is the last one from the question area. The matching grant. The matching fund grant must be used by. Oh, I see. So I think what Elizabeth's asking is if the grant they get for the matching funds has to be used up by December 31st, 2024, is it still valid as a matching funds? I think that's what the question is.
Well, they've got a stipulation on some of their other matching funds.
Yeah, I think Elizabeth, please correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so if they get another grant as matching funds, but the criteria is that they have to use it up by December 31st, 2024, would that still be considered as an eligible matching fund? I think that's the question.
Yeah, I think for our purposes, yes, we would see that as, we don't often see timelines on them, but it was really for the organization to manage, but it would be, we wouldn't deny that as matching funds as far as I can tell. Amy, you can.
Yeah, I think it would still be accepted because that other funder is requiring you to spend their funds by that date. It doesn't necessarily mean that your project will be complete by that date, right? It means it will have begun, and it can begin as long as it's not scheduled to be completed before the notification.
Okay, so thank you both. We've answered all the questions that's been written down. So I'm just heading over to everybody on the list. If you do have, we have about 3 minutes left. So, but if you have any question you would like to just ask now, you can just click your hand and unmute yourself, or I can unmute you and then you can ask your questions. Okay, so far no hands. So you can still raise hand if you want to. I just want to repeat that both the presentation and the guidelines is are in the handout area that you can download still until we finish this webinar. Oh, there is a hand. So there's Maggie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Quick question. It's about the matching funds. We had our board about 5 or 6 years ago applied for a gaming grant and was successful. And we were trying to look back, and nobody remembers the matching funds being part of the application back, 5, 6 years ago. And I'm wondering if it's new, like, if it's a new addition.
Are you, because this is actually the capital project grant, right, Amy? Are you, because you might be looking at the community gaming grant that your board has applied
Right.
for?
Mm-hmm.
Amy, do you want to, or Todd, do you want to?
Yeah, I was around back in 2017 when we launched it, so I can confirm the matching funds were always a part of the criteria for the capital project grant,
Okay.
but they are not required for your regular programming grants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maggie. So we are 1 minute to 1 o'clock. So I think I would just like to thank Amy and Todd, although you can't see Todd, but Todd, thank you for all your fantastic answers. So as Amy said, if you do have questions, you can still contact the branch or BCACG ourselves, and one of us will try our best to help. You'll receive an email afterwards that allow you to download the guidelines as well if you haven't downloaded here already. So with that, I would just like to extend my thanks to Amy and Todd again, and for taking time to show us details about the grant and also answer so many questions. And also I would like to thank everybody who have stayed with us. So thank you again, and good luck to all your applications, and thank you, Amy and Todd. So
you're very welcome. Good luck,
thank
everybody.
you. Yeah.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for having
Bye-bye.
us.
Bye.
Bye now.